Guys, today I'm joined by Hope Horner, founder and CEO of Lemonlight, an LA-based video content company she co-launched in 2014 from her bedroom. Since then, Lemonlight has grown into a team of 140 employees, produced over 30,000 videos for brands like Amazon, Google, Tesla, and Airbnb, and she's earned 7 years on the Inc. 5000 list, on top of multiple creative awards. She's a two-time Inc. top female founder. She's contributed to Forbes and the Harvard Business Review and a recognized innovator in video first marketing. Hope, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for coming on. Jumping straight into it, for agency founders who have already scaled past that million mark, when you were scaling your agency, what was the one growth lever that made the biggest difference for you? And what do you feel like most founders are overlooking at that stage?
The first thing that comes to mind is I think to get from 0 to 1, 1 to a million to 10 million, and so on. They all take different levels or different focuses, I would say. And I think once you get to the $1 million mark, that's a great milestone, right? It feels really good. It's okay. I definitely have something interesting here. And then what happens is you start to enter like potentially like this kind of middle area that's a little bit grayer. You're used to the hard parts. You understand how the landscape works. You've proven out your model a little bit, but now it's about scaling it to that next level. And I think it's a lot of the cliches are true, right? It's about delighting your customers. I think for agency owners, obviously retention is priority number one. So making sure that you're really keeping a keen focus on keeping them as happy as possible. One book we read early on was Unreasonable Hospitality, which we took a lot of ideas from. It's in the restaurant industry, so nothing to do with my industry at all, but really allowed us to rethink the way that we approached our customers. And then from a marketing perspective, this is not novel. For us back then, it was outbound marketing, but that was in 2014. And so that's different today. But you have to figure out the things that work and you have to exploit them. I feel that's what marketers do, right? We find that little hole and then we like rip it open until we actually ruin it for everyone, I think. But for us back then, it was outbound marketing. That was before it is. It's totally different landscape today. But back then, that's what we really focused on. And over time, we expanded those channels.
That makes sense. Thanks for sharing. And so for other multi-seven-figure agency owners that are listening, for you, what has been the most reliable source of business as you've grown, and how has that evolved? How have you had to shift that?
So we started with outbound. Once that sort of got to a place where it was like getting harder and harder to scale, we really focused on inbound, right? And paid. And then now we're focused on what we call all of it, right? So we didn't do like everything we did early on was performance marketing. If you look at my marketing team, every single person on it are performance marketers, demand generators. We did not focus on the brand, like the brand itself as like brand marketing, honestly, until like year 11, very recently. We're just now starting, to be honest with you, because first of all, a lot of the tech is used to don't work like they used to, but also because once you get to a certain size, you have to do what we call all of it, right? You have to do PR, you have to do brand marketing, you have to do more top of the funnel, which has a lot longer lead times. Attribution is way murkier. But if you don't do those things, it's very hard to keep growing bottom of the funnel constantly. So it's about leveraging all those. Did that answer your question? Sorry, I'm not really sure if I did.
No, I think you did. Thank you. So there's always this awkward where like an agency is balancing sales, fulfillment, and team capacity. For you, at what point did that kick in and how did you solve that?
I think for any type of service business, balancing supply and demand is always one of the biggest challenges, especially when you're trying to actively grow. And back in the day, it was painful, right? Because we would grow fast and then we would stress our team out and then we would rush to catch up on the supply side. And then we would grow fast and then we would stress our team out and we would rush to catch up on the supply side. And that was a model. Like we were pretty intentional with our growth because we knew if we've paid this amount of money and these levers, and we know that all the way down the funnel, we can expect about this much in revenue. So we had some pretty clear funnel metrics that allowed us to plan ahead and prepare for that. It never works exactly like you think, And sometimes it works better than you think. And then you have a really stressed out team. And I think you have to try and estimate it as best as possible. And you have to get what we found is having more outside resources available, right? So having freelance teams that were extraordinarily trained on our core business that we could turn up and turn down as needed. So, and that's shifted in a lot of ways. For once, one time we had an entire in-house editing team. And that's when things would get really stressful when we had a lot of edits due and we had a limited number of people who could do them. And then over time, we're like, okay, now we'll have an in-house editing team and we'll have freelancers that can help. And now, honestly, we have hundreds of freelancers all over the globe. And our in-house team is probably the same size as it was, honestly, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But we found other ways to manage the supply side that was more reasonable and felt better for them.
That makes sense on the fulfillment side. How have you navigated scaling the sales side, and what has changed in your process?
Everything has changed. And I think that how have I navigated scaling the sales side? Are you asking how we grew sales? Or are you asking how we scaled the operational side of the sales department?
I think probably both, but which one? Yeah, whichever one you want to start with.
So sales like scaling demand is really a function of marketing for the most part. And I think the way that you do that is you expand into different channels. You're measuring your cost to acquire a customer, the ROI per channel, and you're constantly testing and you're pulling dollars away from the things that have bad metrics and you're investing in the things that have good metrics. For us, growth was we doubled the size of our business every year for the first like 7 years or something crazy. And the way that we did that is every dollar that we earned in profit, we invested back into marketing. And yeah, we didn't raise any money for the first 8 years, actually. So that is how we scaled demand, was constantly investing profits, which by the way is stressful. It sounds nice now, but that was not nice back then. It was like we stretched ourselves so much at the expense of growth, and I have no regrets, but it was not easy. It felt very chaotic sometimes. Because by the way, when you're a whole bunch of things, a lot of those things don't work, and then we feel like you've just wasted a whole bunch of money and time. But over time, you do find the things that work, and you start doubling down on those, and you start really getting smart about those channels, right? With marketing, you can get extremely sophisticated and detail oriented about how you're segmenting your customers and what channels you're using and how your messaging is defined within those channels. So as we started getting traction in one channel, we would continue to refine it and optimize it. That's how we scaled the sales side. The way that we scaled operations was an adventure. Back in the day, we had one sales team. It didn't matter if you were Google or if you were like the hot dog stand on the side of the street. Like you were just getting funneled into the same sales funnel as everyone else. And we would just hope that you would get paired with the person who could best answer your questions. Over time, we realized we started very much on the SMB side. Like we started with like all hot dog stands basically. But over time, we moved up market. We started getting better reputation in the industry. We offered services that other people couldn't. And so we started getting more enterprise customers. So literally 3 years ago, not very long, definitely after COVID, we finally split up the team. So we tiered our customers based off of the size of their revenue and number of employees. And then we split up our sales team into SMB, enterprise reps, and then partner reps. And that seems so obvious now. Like, I'm like, why did we wait so long to do that? But we did, because we just didn't know and we didn't really understand the differences in the sales cycles and sales approaches of the 3 different markets. But that's how we finally started to get a better handle on things operationally. It was when we split up the teams. We were a little bit more intentional. We were more focused on our messaging and the personas of which we were responding to.
That's a little golden nugget. I think not many agency owners would think of early on.
It made a big difference. Logically, it would, right? Like the folks who are newer at sales, like they're going to have a different approach to sales than someone who's been doing sales for 10 or 15 years, especially inside the industry that you work in.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of finding good sales team members, I've heard a lot of horror stories about that. What has your experience been?
Hiring, listen, if I could solve for all hiring, like I'd be much more successful. Hiring is hard. I think some of the biggest impacts that people don't maybe talk about as much is like kind of the macroeconomic trends that are happening. Like in 21, 22, hiring was so hard. And we were just throwing money, recruiters and at applicants and just doing whatever we could to get the right people. That did not work out as well as we had thought it would. In fact, we wasted so much money and we had a lot of turnover in like those 2 years. But I feel like you have to be intentional with hiring. Like intentionality is probably one of my core values when it comes to anything in work. You have to know what you're hiring for, be really specific about what those traits are. I think for sales, God, what did I used to say? I used to say it was like, they need to be like intelligent, right? They need to be able to have sound conversations with customers about the services that we offer and be able to have those conversations in a very organic way. They need to be charming. I feel like that's part of what makes you really great at sales is being able to like make people like you. That's just true about sales. And then they need to have that X factor, right? Whatever that is. Hiring people that have great sales records is probably the number one thing that I look for, right? Have they been the number one, the top 10%, not even 10%, like top 5% at all of their sales jobs previously? That's the best advice I can give you. That's not always the easiest person to hire. In fact, it's hard. You usually are trying to steal them away. But people who are great at sales are going to be great at sales and pretty much anywhere they go. And so if they have a great track record, and you have to validate that, by the way, a lot of people will say that. But if you can get someone who's great at other sales, usually the rest, like the industry and the specifics around your business can be tough.
Especially if you have a proven product, proven offer, proven track record of success, then it's like they can fall back on all of that as well. That's cool. Shifting gears a little bit, because I know you guys primarily do video inside of your agency, correct?
We don't consider ourselves an agency fully, but because we don't have the like ongoing retention model, like ours is very project based, not always, but in a lot of ways, which is tough, honestly, but it's true. But yes, we are focused on video.
And I'm sorry for calling you an agency. What would you?
No, don't be sorry. I know this is an agency podcast. The way that we structure most of our teams is very similar because it's a service at the end of the day. We build technology to enable that service, but I don't know. I guess I just wanted to.
Studio or just creating?
Yeah, I mean, what's the question? We can
Well,
say
you were
agency,
like
a creative agency. Yeah, it's content creation agency.
content creation. Got it. Okay. How are like given the level of success that you have currently, how are you guys leveraging AI to stay competitive?
Weird time. So first of all, when we were building a technology product, we started building a technology product a couple years ago. And then when ChatGPT actually came into the spotlight in November of 2022, immediately we were like, this is it. This is going to be super important. And we actually restructured our entire technology team around AI, shut down the product. We built an entirely new AI product. And it was the best decision we had made for sure. It was extremely stressful because our board was like, what do you mean? What are you doing? But it turned out to be the right decision. And so we built a product that basically leveraged AI to go to do all of pre-production, to do all the creative, to do all the logistics for any kind of pre-production for video to start. And it shortened our cycle times from 6 weeks to 6 days, eventually like down to 6 hours. And now we're building an AI product that does things in minutes, that can literally go from a sales call to a video in minutes, or a sales call to call sheets and a booked crew in minutes. So we're using it in every part of the business. It's our core, like our proprietary technology is all AI based. And then we use it throughout the business to create efficiencies.
You guys were ahead of the curve and then you like doubled down once you saw the signal.
We did. And it's crazy because now I feel like I'm behind already because the technology is changing and evolving so quickly. And we literally have a roundtable in a couple of weeks to like with some of the smartest folks in our industry, like what does this look like in 3 years? And the truth is, I don't think anyone actually knows. Maybe some people do, but not the people that will be there. It's about trying to make some really educated guesses based on what we know and based on what we've seen in just the last 2 years, because the last 2 years have been unbelievable.
For sure. And so Hope, I've heard you mention a couple times board raising before we raise funds or before we raise money after. I'm curious as a founder, like what that transition is like, and is that something you'd recommend for other agency owners or not?
So we were really strategic with how we raised money. We got to 10 million in revenue before we ever even considered it because we felt that gave us the leverage to manage it better. And then I think it was the right decision. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we raised the money to build the technology that I'm talking about. And we knew that we did not have the resources to continue investing in growth and technology without outside capital. And so that was when we just decided, okay, there's a lot of opportunity here. The only way we can even attempt to bring it to life is to work with some outside partners. And so that's what we did. And it's been good. Honestly, like we've only raised money once. It's a pretty modest amount, but I feel like I definitely don't have any regrets. But it's very different than going down the entire VC route, which is you hear great stories and horror stories. But for me personally, it was very successful.
And in terms of if you had to give one piece of advice for any agency owner that's coming up, that's trying to get to the 8-figure mark, what would that piece of advice be?
I think there's so much garbage on the internet. I hate to say it about how to be successful. and about what life should feel like when you're working, like when you're building a business, about balance and like all of these things. And listen, that's nice. And maybe that works for some people, but the people that I know in my own experience, that's not the case. Like I really believe that great success requires great sacrifice, and you have to be willing to do it, right? If you want to really go the distance, you have to be willing to do it at all costs. One thing I say a lot that I heard somewhere, I'm sure, is pressure is a privilege. You have to be willing to look at it that way and be willing to not sleep and not have much of a social life and work all the time. Look at the greats. Listen to what they say. You hear them talk about it all the time. Like, it's not fun. It's not glamorous. No one thinks it is, but it's worse than that, right? It's literally sacrificing your entire life to be great. And it's not forever, right? That was a period of my time, but we would not have gotten to where we are, or where we, as quickly as we did, if we and my two co-founders didn't eat, sleep, breathe everything about this business.
Is there
It's a little depressing, but it's true.
No, I think sometimes it's like you need that reality check and you need to have those words of advice where it's like, when you're in the dip, like just know that's not the only dip and it's gonna keep going and keep continuing and you gotta push through and
You have to be resilient. You have to build that tough skin. You have to keep going. You have to just understand, like, this is what greatness looks like for a while. Eventually you get to the other side, and it doesn't look and feel like that all the time. For a long time it does. And that is hard for people to accept. They're always trying to find the work-life balance. They're trying to do all the things. And I get it. Like, I crave those things too, but that wasn't my experience. And with other really successful founders I've talked to, that's not usually their experience either. It's a really great question. Our hope is that eventually it'll be available to other agencies as well as a SaaS solution. We actually started going down that path earlier this year, paused it because we wanted to really focus on kind of the internal workflows and tools, because we thought there was a lot left that we could do that would be really impactful. So we shifted our focus. That's definitely the end goal. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything else. I feel like that's kind of my greatest advice. I'm like, human first. I think about that a lot. Like, from a marketing standpoint, especially, think about it as you receive content. Like, the way that the lens with which I always think about our marketing efforts is like, if I were to receive this email, if I were to see this ad, if I were to engage with this content, like, how would I actually feel? Because in this, like, I am our target customer. And I think about it just from a very human perspective, which has been helpful, I think. And then where you can find us is at lemonlight.com, Lemonlaght. I'm also on LinkedIn sometimes. And yeah, you can also email me directly if you have any questions. It's just hope@lemonlight. Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's been a pleasure.